Over 60 killed after gunmen opened fire in Moscow concert. Israel stubbornly insists on carrying out Rafah ground assaults. Good afternoon, I'm Jessica Lee. This is World Today. Gunmen opened fire at a Moscow concert hall on Friday, killing more than 60 people, wounding more than 100 and sparking an inferno, with the Daesh group claiming responsibility. According to a journalist for the RIA Novosti news agency, attackers dressed in camouflage uniforms entered the building, opened fire and threw a grenade or incendiary bomb. Fire quickly spread through the Crocus City Concert Hall in Moscow's northern Krasnogorsk suburb as smoke filled the building and screaming visitors rushed to emergency exits. Russia's investigative committee said more than 60 people had been killed, raising an earlier toll of 40. Russia's health minister Mikhail Murashko said 115 people were hospitalized, including 5 children, one of whom was in grave condition. Of the 110 adult patients, 60 were in serious condition. Authorities said an investigation had been started and President Vladimir Putin was receiving constant updates. Russia's National Guard said it was on the scene and looking for the perpetrators. Now, Israel plans to send troops into Gaza's Rafah even without U.S. support. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu told the U.S. top diplomat on Friday as Washington failed to pass a UN resolution on an immediate ceasefire. U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken was on a whistle-stop tour of the region to support truce talks in Qatar that involved indirect negotiations between Israeli and Hamas representatives. Now, after meeting with Blinken in Tel Aviv, Netanyahu told Blinken that there was no way to defeat Hamas without troops entering Rafah, a plan that has provoked international concern for the 1.5 million civilians trapped in the city. Netanyahu had informed the U.S. top diplomat his army will go into Rafah in the Gaza Strip even without U.S. support. The violence, meanwhile, continued with Israeli forces raiding Gaza's largest hospital complex for a 5th day, killing more than 150 people in the ongoing operation Hamas has labeled criminal. Now, Israel also continued to pound the southern city of Rafah and its surroundings, where most of Gaza's population has taken shelter. As the U.S. top diplomat was in Israel, the hard-right government announced it was confiscating 1,980 acres of land in the occupied West Bank in a move settlement watchdog piece now described as provocation. Successive Israeli governments have sharply accelerated the expansion of settlements across the West Bank and annexed East Jerusalem, which are regarded as illegal under international law and one of the major obstacles to West Asia peace. The United Nations Security Council on Friday failed to pass a U.S.-backed resolution calling for an immediate ceasefire in Gaza as part of a hostage deal. Its leading opponents, led by Russia. Now, China's ambassador to the UN said Beijing also supported an alternative resolution it viewed as more balanced. He went on to criticize the text proposed by the U.S. for not clearly stating its opposition to any military operation by Israel in Rafah, which he said could lead to severe consequences. He said if the U.S. was serious about a ceasefire, it would not have vetoed multiple previous Security Council resolutions. It marked a further toughening of Washington's stance towards Israel. Earlier in the 5-month-long war, the U.S. was averse to the word ceasefire and vetoed measures that included calls for an immediate ceasefire. Now, during the war, Washington has vetoed 3 draft resolutions, 2 of which would have demanded an immediate ceasefire. The U.S. had justified its veto by saying such council action could jeopardize ceasefire talks. Now, Israel's offensive has killed more than 32,000 Palestinians, according to health authorities in Gaza. Now, Palestinians in Gaza do not expect anything to come out of U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken's visit to the region. They believe with his previous visits, Blinken did not achieve anything new for the Palestinian people, nor did he contribute at all to the ceasefire. Blinken, on his sixth trip to West Asia since the war broke out, has been engaged in a round of diplomacy since arriving in the region on Wednesday, meeting Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman in Saudi Arabia and foreign ministers and officials from Arab nations in Cairo on Thursday. Blinken met Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu on Friday for talks aimed at ensuring more aid flows into Gaza amid increasingly tense relations between the two allies over the 6-month-old war. Now, Blinken said he would push Netanyahu to take urgent steps to allow more aid into the densely populated enclave, where the United Nations said mass deaths from famine is imminent. The Blinken is also expected to discuss Israel's intention to launch a ground offensive on Rafah, a city on the southern edge of the enclave where more than half of Gaza's population is now sheltering in makeshift accommodation. The United States House of Representatives on Friday passed $1.2 trillion government funding bill with more support from Democrats than the majority Republicans. Now, this led to a fresh threat by a hardline conservative lawmaker to oust Speaker Mike Johnson.
On this vote,
Johnson himself ascended to that role in October after hardliners, furious that his predecessor, Kevin McCarthy, had passed a temporary funding measure over their objections, ousted him as leader. Now, the House 286 to 134 vote sends the measure to the Democratic Majority Senate, which has hours to act ahead of a midnight deadline when parts of the Department of Homeland Security, Internal Revenue Service, and Justice Department to Treasury and State Departments would begin to close. The move marks a critical step towards ending a more than 6-month battle over the scope of Washington's spending for the fiscal year that began on the 1st of October. Now, ratings agencies have warned that the repeated brinksmanship could hurt the creditworthiness of a federal government that currently has more than $34.6 trillion in debt. Venezuela's opposition leader, Maria Corina Machado, on Friday named Corina Lloris as her successor to take on President Nicolas Maduro in the country's presidential election in July. Now, the decision came following the arrest of 2 of Machado's close aides. The naming of Lloris, 80, as the opposition's candidate comes after Venezuela's Attorney General announced the detention of 2 of Machado's closest allies earlier this week. They also said arrest warrants had been issued for 7 other people, including rumored Machado replacement Magali Meda. The decision all but marks Machado's withdrawal from the election planned for the 28th of July after she was barred from holding public office, a ruling which was upheld by Venezuela's highest court even after winning a landslide 93% in an opposition primary last October. The arrests of Machado allies Henry Alvarez and Dignora Hernandez caused international outcry. U.S. State Department spokesperson Matthew Miller, in a statement on Friday, said the decision by Maduro and his representatives to detain 2 members of the leading opposition candidate's campaign and issue warrants for 7 others represents a disturbing escalation of repression. Up next, 2 killed in Texas highway crash involving school bus and cement truck. The 2 people, including a young boy, were killed and dozens of others were injured in a Texas highway crash on Friday when a cement truck veered head-on into a school bus carrying more than 40 children on a field trip. Now, the accident unfolded around 2 p.m. on State Highway 21 in Bastrop County, Texas, northeast of Austin. In addition to 1 child on the bus pronounced dead at the scene, the wreck killed the male driver of a passenger car that was traveling behind the bus and ended up crashing into one of the 2 larger vehicles when they collided. A total of 11 adults and 44 children were aboard the bus, while the other two vehicles each carried only one driver. Among the survivors, 4 were flown to hospitals by helicopter in critical condition, and 6 with serious but less dire injuries were transported by ambulance. The remainder sustained minor injuries, some of which were also treated at area hospitals. Investigators were seeking to determine what led the cement truck to swerve into the path of the oncoming school bus. There was no immediate indication the driver was impaired. Authorities at the scene did not give the children's ages, but the Austin American-Statesman newspaper reported the youngsters were pre-kindergarten students from the Hayes Consolidated Independent School District who were on their way to a local zoo. Now, Ukraine hopes to sign a deal in June to buy 2 nuclear reactors from Bulgaria as it seeks to compensate for the loss of its vast Russian-occupied 6-reactor Zaporizhzhia plant. Now, head of nuclear firm Energoatom, Petro Kotin, said the new reactors will be built at the Khmelnytsky nuclear power plant in western Ukraine and equipped with Russian-designed equipment that Kiev wants to import from Bulgaria. Russia gained control of the Zaporizhzhia station, Europe's largest nuclear plant, after launching its invasion of Ukraine in February 2022. Zaporizhzhia's 6 nuclear reactors are now idled. Kotin said if equipment is delivered on time, Energoatom would be ready to begin startup work on the new reactor in 2 to 3 years, a period which is also needed to manufacture the turbine for the unit. Now, since the loss of Zaporizhzhia, Ukraine relies on nuclear power from 3 operating plants in the country, totaling 9 reactors, including 2 reactors currently in operation at the Khmelnytsky plant. Now, Kotin said Ukraine had not abandoned plans to restart the Zaporizhzhia power plant one day. Now, lawmakers in the German parliament voted on Friday to partially legalize the consumption and growing of cannabis. The new law will take effect on the 1st of April and will allow adults in Germany to possess certain amounts of cannabis for their own use and grow up to 3 cannabis plants themselves. Larger scale but still non-commercial cannabis production will be allowed for members of so-called cannabis clubs with no more than 500 members, all of whom must be adults. Now, only club members can consume their product. Some 4.5 million Germans are estimated to use cannabis. Germany becomes the 9th country to legalize recreational use of the drug, which is also legal in some subnational jurisdictions in the United States and Australia. Many more countries allow its medical use as a painkiller. However, it was highlighted that cannabis remains illegal for minors as well as the consumption of it near children-related locations such as schools and playgrounds. Now, the construction of the ambitious Mayan Train project in Mexico has raised serious concerns among environmentalists and activists over the damage to ancient cave systems in Mexico's Yucatan Peninsula. According to environmentalists, the construction of the huge railway project threatens fragile ecosystems. On Friday, demonstrators protested and blocked one of the main access roads to the touristic town of Playa del Carmen to demand that the railway construction works comply with environmental laws and stop pollution in the largest water reserve of the Yucatan Peninsula. The Tren Maya is one of Mexican President Obrador's flagship infrastructure projects, which he says will bring significant economic benefits to long impoverished rural communities in Mexico's southeast. However, environmentalists have long raised concerns about the train's construction, which cuts through some of the world's most unique ecosystems. Among these are a system of thousands of subterranean caves carved out from the region's soft limestone bedrock by water over millions of years. Katherine, Princess of Wales, on Friday announced that she has cancer and is in the early stages of chemotherapy, asking for time, space and privacy as she completes her treatment. Kate, as she is widely known, said the discovery of cancer after successful abdominal surgery in January was a huge shock, but she was well and getting stronger every day.
My work has always brought me a deep sense of joy, and I look forward to being back when I'm able. But for now, I must focus on making a full recovery. At this time, I'm also thinking of all those whose lives have been affected by cancer. For everyone facing this disease, in whatever form, please do not lose faith or hope. You are not alone.
The disclosure came after royal officials said in February that King Charles III was being treated for cancer, forcing him to cancel all public engagements. Charles said he was so proud of Katherine for her courage in speaking as she did, leading messages of support including from UK Prime Minister Rishi Sunak and the White House. William's estranged US-based brother Prince Harry and his wife Meghan Markle said they wish health and healing for Kate and the family. Still to come in sport, Kylian Mbappe's future expected to be revealed before Euros kickoff. The Brazilian Football Confederation, or CBF, and the International Center for Sport Security, ICSS, signed a cooperation agreement to promote integrity in football on Friday. Now, the agreement signed at Wembley on the eve of a high-profile friendly international between England and Brazil aims at combating match fixing and fraud. As part of this plan and aligned with FIFA and CONMEBOL, CBF has requested the ICSS to work together on the development of an overarching strategy to combat match fixing. Furthermore, the program would also focus on national educational and training program for the benefit of the Brazilian football athletes, officials, leagues, clubs at all levels, and the confederation itself. The ICSS holds established expertise in sports safety, security, and integrity, and works with leading international organizations. Now, this includes the United Nations Educational, Scientific and Cultural Organization, UNESCO, the United Nations Office on Drugs and Crime, UNODC, the Council of Europe, and the World Bank. Real Madrid star Vinicius Jr., who has been the target of racism throughout his career, was among the dignitaries during the signing of the agreement. French football superstar Kylian Mbappe believes he will know which club he will join next season before the European Championship kicks off in June. Now, the France forward said the matter on Friday and added that he will be focused on the France national team when the European Championships comes along. Mbappe, who is set to leave Paris Saint-Germain in the summer, said his focus was on representing his national team in the Euros as well as the Olympics in Paris, if he is allowed to be available for selection. Ultimately, Mbappe did not give the news that everyone was waiting for about which club he is joining, and insisted he would deliver an announcement as and when there is news to report.
J'ai rien annoncé parce que j'avais rien à annoncer. J'ai toujours dit que le jour où j'aurai quelque chose à dire, je viendrai me présenter comme un homme et je parlerai. Et donc tant que je l'ai pas fait, c'est que j'ai rien à annoncer.
Mbappe also said playing in the Olympics would be a dream, but the decision is not up to the 25-year-old. The Olympics men's soccer tournament is played between under-23 sides, with only 3 players over that age limit allowed in each squad. Now, France head coach Didier Deschamps said playing Germany was always an exciting affair, even in a friendly. Now, France will play another friendly against Chile on Tuesday before facing Austria in their Euros group stage opening game on the 17th of June. The Paris Olympics will begin in July. Let's take a look at tennis. World number 2, Aryna Sabalenka, returned to the court for the first time since the death of a former boyfriend earlier this week and kept her emotions in check as she beat Spain's Paula Badosa 6-4, 6-3 in Miami Open. After 6 hours of rain delay, Sabalenka walked onto the court wearing an all-black outfit, a choice matched by her close friend Badosa. Sabalenka made a slow start to the match but broke to go 4-3 up in the first set and never looked back from that point on. The Belarusian then broke in the third game of the second set with a superb cross-court forehand winner and showed too much power for her Spanish opponent as she wrapped up the win in 1 hour and 22 minutes. The two players embraced at the net before leaving the court without an on-court interview. Sabalenka has asked the WTA to be excused from media duties at the tournament. In other action, third-seeded American Coco Gauff sped into the third round with a 6-1, 6-2 demolition of Argentine qualifier Nadia Podoroska. Gauff will face the winner of the match between Dutch woman Arancia Rus and French lucky loser Oceane Dodan next. Meanwhile, Czech Tomáš Mačák stunned Russian fifth seed Andrei Rublev in straight sets to advance to the third round. Machado, ranked 60th in the world, powered to a 6-4, 6-4 victory just before a heavy downpour caused the suspension of play, with rain having initially delayed the start of action by over 6 hours. In difficult conditions, Machado clipped 17 winners to 22 unforced errors and saved both break points he faced. Advancing to the third round of an ATP Masters 1000 for the first time, the 23-year-old will next meet the winner of former world number 1 Andy Murray and number 29 seed Thomas Martin Echeverry. Now, Major League Baseball on Friday said it had begun a formal investigation into a situation surrounding Los Angeles Dodgers star Shohei Ohtani and his longtime interpreter Ippei Mizuhara following allegations of theft. Mizuhara was fired by the team on Wednesday after Ohtani's lawyers said he had engaged in massive theft. United States media reported that Mizuhara allegedly used Ohtani's money to pay off gambling debts to a Southern California bookmaker who is under federal investigation. The two-time Los Angeles MVP Ohtani inked a record 10-year, $700 million contract with the team in the off-season. Now, the allegations surfaced during the Seoul series, the first scheduled MLB games in South Korea, with games between the Dodgers and San Diego Padres. The Dodgers confirmed Mizuhara's firing and said they are aware of media reports and are gathering information. The Ohtani-Mizuhara pair have had a lasting professional relationship. They first worked together from 2013 to 2017 when Mizuhara served as a translator for the Nippon Ham Fighters, Ohtani's team with Japan's Nippon Professional Baseball League. Of the Colonel haunts Japanese baseball fans for decades. That and more in our Offbeat segment. Peru's Universidad Nacional Mayor de San Marcos announced the discovery of a skull belonging to the largest dolphin to ever roam the waters of what is now the Amazon. Experts said these animals lived around 16 million years ago and measured between 3 to 3.5 meters long. It was named Pebanista yacuruna, after the yacuruna, a Peruvian mythological being that lives in the depths of water.
Los ancestros del pebanista y del platanista, del pebanista de la Amazonía y del platanista de Asia, vivían en el océano. Y esto les permitió ocupar grandes espacios marinos, tanto cercano a las costas de la India como a las costas sudamericanas. Estos animales ocuparon los ambientes de agua dulce, tanto en la Amazonía como en la India. Lamentablemente en la Amazonía se extinguieron, en la India sobrevivieron hasta nuestros días.
The discovery was made during a 2018 expedition sponsored by the National Geographic Society in the Napo River. A plastic statue of Kentucky Fried Chicken's founder, Colonel Sanders, that was a lucky charm for superstitious Japanese baseball fans, has been disposed of 15 years after being dredged out of an Osaka river. Jubilant supporters of Osaka's Hanshin Tigers, known for being Japan's most passionate baseball fans, flung the effigy and themselves into the dirty Dotonbori River in 1985 after winning Japan's version of the World Series. But as the years went by and the Tigers' fortunes faltered, a belief took hold among fans dubbed the curse of the Colonel, that success would only return if the life-size doll was recovered. The bearded statue was finally found during construction work in 2009 and salvaged, covered in sludge and missing his glasses and left hand. Now, he was cleaned up, blessed by a priest, and put on display. The alleged jinx took some time to be exorcised, but finally last year, the Tigers won the Japan Series again after a 38-year wait, prompting wild celebrations and more jumping into the river. Now, KFC said that the statue was now too dilapidated to maintain and would be disposed of. But first, a ritual showing their gratitude was held at a temple and attended by KFC's Japan president, Takayuki Hanji, who offered Japanese sake along with the chain's signature fried chicken. It is cherry blossom season in Washington, D.C., and amidst the blooming trees along the tidal basin stands Stumpy, a cherished figure among the 1,400 cherry blossom trees adorning the area's monuments. While locals eagerly anticipate the annual blossoming of these trees, this year marks a bittersweet moment for Stumpy and his neighbors along the southern shore, as it will be their final display of blossoms.
It looks bare. It looks like wet. It looks like mud. It doesn't look like there's no grass. There's no life. There's no it's springtime, but there's no grass. There's no flowers. There's no growth of any kind.
The seawalls have been failing for decades, and as sea levels rise, the tidal basin gets more and more flooded each high tide. It is starting to drown these trees.
I know that they said that they're going to clone him or they're going to try to replace him or whatever, but I don't think it'll be the same. So I wanted to make sure that we got a picture in with the original Stumpy as much as we could, because there's quite a crowd. There was quite a crowd.
The effort is part of a $113 million project to fix the failing sea walls. The work won't begin until after cherry blossom season in April, and the trees themselves won't be cut down until May or June. And that wraps up this edition of World Today. In our top story, over 60 killed after gunmen opened fire in Moscow concert. Till next time, I'm Jessica Lee. From the river to the sea, Palestine will be free. Salam Malaysia Madani. Thank you for watching.